Hi, welcome to Level 2 Bookkeeping 1. This session will be about accounting for purchases and purchases returns.
Hello and welcome to AAT Level 2 Introduction to Basic Costing. This session is on cost behavior.
Hi, welcome to Level 2 Bookkeeping 2. This session will be about paying into the bank.
Hello and welcome to AAT Level 2 Working Effectively in Accounting and Finance. Today's session is Session 5 on Managing Your Work.
Hello and welcome to Level 2 Computerized Accounting Systems. Today we're going to cover Introduction to Computer Accounting and it's Session 1.1.
Hello everyone, welcome to Level 3 Accounts Preparation. This session will be about accounting for capital transactions.
Hello and welcome to AAT Level 3 Analyzing Costs and Revenues. This session is on accounting for labor.
Welcome back to Level 3 Indirect Tax. This is now session number 2 and what we're going to be looking at is VAT invoices.
Hi and welcome to Level 3 Professional Ethics in Accounting. We've got 6 sessions in order to go through all of the terminology and techniques and tasks that you need to be familiar with in order to be successful in AAT.
Hello everyone, welcome to Level 3 Final Accounts for Sole Traders and Partnerships. This session will be about incomplete records accounting.
The following clips are examples of how we introduce each session by applying theory to practical situations in the workplace. Stocks and manufacturing, for example, are all part of Level 2 costing and Level 3 costing. Your taxi drivers are typical of sole traders who need to supply profit and loss accounts, figures and balance sheets for the inland revenue. From that, they will produce tax returns and are typical of clients that you would get working in an accounting practice. Market stallholders are other examples of sole traders which are relevant to your costing, accounting and bookkeeping at Level 2. If we look at the following example, we see an example of what not to do in the workplace, and this forms your health and safety for working effectively in the accounting environment. Teamwork, communication, skills acquired in the workplace, all necessary.
The first thing that we're going to look at is the VAT return format. Now when it comes to this VAT return, most businesses must submit the VAT return electronically online. These normally cover a 3-month VAT period, which basically means that they are prepared on a quarterly basis. We can only prepare the VAT return once all of the VAT figures have been transferred to the VAT control account.
So why is ethics important for accountants? Why is it that accountants must ensure that they are portraying the highest ethical standards in terms of their work as auditors and in their role as employees within the organisation? Well, accountants, like doctors and architects and lawyers, are considered to be professionals in society. They are members of an esteemed professional institution or association.
So absorption costing is a method which we use to calculate the full production cost per unit by calculating an overhead cost per unit and adding it to the prime cost per unit. If we look at our production costs and think about why we incur them, the answer is this is only because we are manufacturing our units. So the reason why we have production costs is because we are producing our cost units in a business.
Sales invoices and terminology. First of all, invoice, you might be familiar with it, but just in case, to revise, sales invoice is a document that you send to your customer to advise them how much money they owe you for your goods or services. Credit note, well, let's say sales credit note, is also a document that you also send to your customer, and this is to advise whether you are cancelling some invoice or maybe you are reducing some of your invoice.
The journal. The journal completes the accounting system as a book of prime entry for non-regular transactions not recorded in any other books of prime entry.
So let's summarize everything we learned in this session. We saw that absorption costing helps us calculate the full production cost per unit. Now let's summarize everything we learned in this session. We learned how to use break-even analysis. We learned how to calculate the break-even point in terms of units and in terms of revenue. We learned about margin of safety and contribution to sales ratio. We learned about target profit and how to calculate the units required to achieve that target. We learned how to use the limiting factor analysis and maximize contribution when some factor limits our production. And we learned how to deal with special order pricing.
Let's revise what we have learned in this session. The first objective is to write up an asset disposals account. We do this by 3 steps. We remove the original cost of the asset, debit asset disposals, credit non-current assets. Step 2 is to remove the depreciation to date, debit accumulated depreciation, credit asset disposals. And finally, we deal with the disposal proceeds, debit bank and credit asset disposals. Step 2 is to calculate the profit or loss on disposal. Now, in your disposals account, you will have a balance carried down on the credit side or the debit side. If the balance comes up on the credit side, it means that this is a loss on disposal. So what you do, you debit your SOPL as an expense, but then you credit the asset disposals account. This will clear the account for you. If you have a gain on disposal, it means that the balance brought down appeared on the debit side of your account. So what you do, you debit asset disposals and you credit SOPL because it's an income. Let's revise what we have learned in this session. The first objective was to learn the accounting principles. The principles are going concern, accruals, prudence and consistency. Make sure you know the definition of these principles. Objective 2 was to learn the accounting policies. The accounting policies or the accounting characteristics that our financial statements should have, we need to make sure that they are relevant and they are represented faithfully.
So that's the end of this session. Let's summarise what we've discussed. We've discussed the deadlines of our VAT return and payments. Remember that this is always 1 month plus 7 days after the end of the VAT period. We've also discussed what would happen in situations where we fail to pay on time. We will incur penalties, which will initially start as a surcharge liability notice, and then if there are any further late payments, we will start having to pay penalties of 2%, rising to 5%, then 10%, then 15%. Remember that failure to pay your VAT is considered to be a criminal offence, and failure to pay any penalties is also considered to be a criminal offence. The final thing that we discussed was reporting any kind of errors on a VAT return. Now remember that with errors, any previous errors on previous VAT returns are simply corrected in the current period's VAT return. However, if there is an error of more than 10,000, the business should inform the local VAT office of this. The information that they need to disclose about this error are number 1, the VAT period in which the error occurred, 2, the error amount, 3, if the error was favourable or unfavourable to the HMRC, and 4, whether the error involved output or input tax.
And so there we have it. We've looked at the characteristics of a professional, and we've also considered the context of professionalism in terms of different levels of support that are provided by different institutions.
Let's now take a look at the assessments for session number 6. Task number 1. Decide whether each of the items below should be a debit or a credit on the VAT control account. We've got here debit and credit columns, And we've now got the different items that will appear on that VAT control account. We have bad debt relief, we have VAT amount from sales daybook, we have VAT amount from purchases daybook, we also have VAT on cash sales and petty cash book expenses. What we now need to decide is whether these are going to be debits or credits, and we're going to be using our ticking system. So the first one here is our bad debt relief. Where is that going to appear? Well, it is going to appear on the debit side of the VAT control account. The VAT amount from the sales daybook, where does this appear? Well, it appears on the credit side of the VAT control account. How about the VAT amount from the purchases daybook? Well, this will appear on the debit side of the VAT control account. How about the VAT on cash sales? Well, the VAT on cash sales will appear as a credit. And finally, your cash book expenses will appear on the debit side. This is simply taking that pro forma that you've learnt already and applying it to this question. So please ensure that you have committed that layout to memory, because that was actually quite easy as long as you know where the debits and the credits belong.
Okay, let's take a look at some assessment tasks that relate to professional competence. As you are aware, there are two kinds of assessment tasks. Firstly, there are the very short questions, which may just consist of a couple of sentences in order to generate an answer. And then there are the slightly longer scenario-based questions. So let's just take a look at some examples in relation to each of these that relate to this session and considerations of professional competence. So, okay, identify two forms of professional competence that exist. You might want to pause the recording just to give yourself a little bit of time to think, but I'll just keep moving in relation to them. So two forms of professional competence. Well, there's the need for competence in relation to attaining competence and the need for competence in maintaining that competence, of course, through CPD. Which fundamental principles of ethics may be threatened through a lack of professional competence? Well, we went through all five of the fundamental concepts, didn't we? Integrity, objectivity, competence itself, confidentiality and professional behaviour, and suggested that all five of them may be threatened if we're not competent, so the answer must be all of them. Which areas of knowledge should an AAT member focus on through CPD? Well, there are many. I mean, accounting standards, taxation, legal issues and auditing standards are probably the most important in relation to that, aren't they? So they are.
The partners are Sam, Ella and Matt. Sam is to retire on the 1st of April 2014. Ella and Matt will continue in partnership. Sam agrees to leave £25,000 of the amount due to her as a loan to the new partnership. The remainder will be paid to her from the partnership bank account. The profit share effective until the 31st of March, Sam is 35%, Ella is 35% and Matt is 30%. The profit share effective from the 1st of April, so this is after Sam has retired, Ella will get 50% and Matt will get 50%. Goodwill was valued at £36,000 on the 31st of March 2014. Prepare the capital account for Sam showing clearly the amount to be paid to her from the partnership bank account as at the 1st of April 2014. The examiner will give you pro forma of the account and you can see that there's a balance brought down of £58,200. Now what we need to do, we need to create the goodwill by crediting the partner's capital account. So 35% of £36,000 is £12,600. This appears on the credit side. And then Sam agrees to leave a £25,000 to the new partnership, so we'll take that as a loan. So this will reduce the amount that is owed to her, so we'll debit that. So loan at £25,000. There are no other transactions, so balances the account. So the amount to be paid from the partnership bank account is £45,800. There is no balance carried down or balance brought down here because Sam is retiring. We will clear the capital account for Sam.
We are given information about a manufacturing company looking to cost a new product, WH01. We are provided with the information about this product, some cost estimates given in a table, and we also know that the company will produce this product in batches of 50,000 units each. So our task, part A, is to calculate the total cost of one unit of WH01. Now this is the cost information, and we know that the number of units, the volume of output in this batch is 50,000. Getting the total cost per unit, as we said already, means we just take the total cost of the batch and we divide it by the number of cost units in it. Alright, well, the total cost is given. We can see at the bottom of the table it's 50,000. So we divide the 50,000 pounds by the 50,000 units of production and we get a cost per unit of £1.